Ghosts Among Us is a series of one-shots. Beloved Son by Reader Revolution. Summary. Jason glanced back at his headstone. Beloved son, lost too soon. So what's your name? Jason finally asked, crossing his arms over his chest. He wasn't exactly the type to offer comfort, but he figured it would help to know more about the guy. The guy hesitated for a second before answering. Danny Fenton. He seemed to sag slightly with relief at having given his name. You? Jason paused, then let out a dry laugh. Jason Todd. He didn't bother hiding the bitterness that crept into his voice. Beloved son, he muttered, under his breath, reading the words on the stone again. Lost too soon. Or Jason finds himself facing his own grave, only to be unexpectedly joined by a young man crying over it. Jason Todd had been having a weird day. It wasn't often that he got sentimental enough to visit his own grave, and yet, here he was, Gotham Cemetery, late at night, staring down at his own headstone, like it might talk back. Jason Todd, beloved son, lost too soon. Beloved my ass, he muttered under his breath. He wasn't sure why he kept coming back to this spot. Closure? Morbid curiosity? Whatever it was, it left him feeling raw and hollow. That's when he heard it. Ugly crying. Jason turned, surprised to see someone crouched by his grave. The guy was a mess. Tears streaming down his face, shoulders shaking. He looked like his entire world had fallen apart. No way. Jason blinked. Was this guy crying over him? Jason checked again. The guy was crying at his grave. Danny had panicked big time. One second he was driving through Gotham, marveling at how people willingly live in a city with so many clowns, literally. And the next he was running, a red light with a cop car trailing him. His genius solution? Veer to the nearest graveyard, jump out of the car and start fake crying to sell the tragic backstory that only justified his reckless driving. It wasn't his best plan. Then again, Danny's best plans often ended with explosions. And now he was here, crouched over some random grave, Jason thought apparently, crying real tears because, well, he had a lot to cry about. Between Amity Park, ghost stuff, and his utterly chaotic existence, the tears came naturally. The cop had given him a weird look and driven off, which meant Operation Fake Grief had been a success. Except now someone was standing behind him. Danny sniffled and looked up, his tear-filled eyes meeting those of a tall, broad-shouldered guy in a leather jacket. Jason pinched the bridge of his nose, debating whether or not he had the energy to deal with this. The kid, no, this guy, looked young, maybe early 20s, but he was a wreck, shoulders shaking, face red and streaked with tears, and he kept glancing at the grave like it was some kind of shrine. Jason cleared his throat. Hey? You okay there? The guy froze, his sobbing cutting off mid-gasp. Slowly, he turned to look up at Jason, his tear-streaked face full of panic. Jason started, but the guy cut him off with a fresh wave of sobbing. I'm so sorry, he wailed, burying his face in his hands. Jason froze. What? Jason stared at the guy, completely at a loss. This wasn't exactly the kind of thing he dealt with on a regular basis. Fights, sure. Explosions, absolutely. Emotional wrecks, sobbing over his grave in the middle of the night? Not so much. The guy's hands were shaking as he tried and failed to wipe his face dry. I didn't mean to, agents. Is this respectful? Am I disrespecting you? I wasn't trying to, Jason held up a hand, hoping to cut him off before he hyperventilated. Hey, slow down, breathe, alright? You're not disrespecting me. Danny squeezed his eyes shut, his hands trembling as he tried to regain control of his breathing. The last thing he needed was some angry ghost hunting him for crying at their grave. He couldn't believe this was happening. He hadn't even known this guy was a ghost when he started crying. It was supposed to be a distraction, a fake emotional breakdown to throw off the cops. Now the situation had spiraled into something far beyond anything he'd ever dealt with. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful, Danny blurted out again, his voice cracking. I don't even know who you were before this. I didn't mean to upset you. His breath came faster, a full-on panic attack looming over him. Jason watched the guy struggling to hold it together. He wasn't sure what to make of it. The guy had stumbled into his grave, sobbing like his life depended on it, and now here he was, apologizing for something Jason wasn't even sure about. "Look, man," Jason said carefully, his voice softer now. "You're not doing anything wrong. You just showed up here at a weird time. That's all. But you're not disrespecting me." The guy, and man, Jason really needed to get his name, shook his head, still trying to catch his breath. "No, it's not just that. I didn't mean to, I'm just a mess right now." He let out a shaky breath, wiping at his face again. "I didn't mean to get emotional," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "It was just supposed to be a stupid distraction. Crying at a grave seemed like the best way to throw off the cops." Jason shifted uncomfortably, his gaze falling to the ground as he listened. There was something painful familiar about the way the guy was falling apart. It wasn't something Jason expected to feel. Sympathy, maybe, or something like that. A part of him had hoped, even just a little, that whoever was at his grave would have something more meaningful to say, some deep connection or understanding. But this was raw desperation, something Jason couldn't help but relate to. Jason glanced back at his headstone. "Beloved son, lost too soon." "So, what's your name?" Jason finally asked, crossing his arms over his chest. He wasn't exactly the type to offer comfort, but he figured it would help to know more about the guy. The guy hesitated for a second before answering. Danny Fenton." He seemed to sag slightly with relief at having given his name. "You?" Jason paused, then let out a dry laugh. Jason Todd." He didn't bother hiding the bitterness that crept into his voice. "Beloved son," he muttered under his breath, reading the words on the stone again. "Lost too soon." Then he took a deep breath, his gaze locked on Jason's headstone. "I died too, you know," he said quietly. Jason glanced at him, surprised. "You died?" Then he rubbed his hands together, trying to steady his nerves. He glanced over at Jason, who sat still, staring at his own gravestone like it might offer some kind of answer. Danny knew exactly what that felt like. "I didn't have a grave," Danny said quietly, breaking the silence again. "I wanted one, a place to go, you know. A place where people could visit me, remember me, leave flowers. But I didn't get that." Then he shook his head, staring down at the ground. "No one could find my body. Not that it matters anymore." Jason sat there, stunned for a moment. He just stared at Danny, his mind racing to process what he'd just heard. Jason listened quietly as Danny spoke, the weight of the words settling between them like a heavy fog. He glanced back at his own grave again, fingers brushing over the worn lettering. "A place to go," Danny had said. Jason could understand that more than he liked to admit. "Beloved son." "You didn't get a grave?" Jason said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. He stared at the ground for a moment, considering something. "You deserve one," he added quietly. Danny's head snapped up, surprise flickering in his tear-streaked face. "What?" Jason gave a faint nod, his expression unreadable. "You said no one could find your body, but they don't need to." What if you had a place, a memorial, right here, next to me? Danny's breath hitched, the weight of Jason's offer sinking in. You'd let me? Jason gave him a faint, hollow smile. I don't need it. I don't think they will care much. And you deserve it. For a moment, Danny said nothing, his mind clearly racing with emotions. Then a small, genuine smile tugged at his lips, something Jason hadn't seen before. Thanks, Jason. I appreciate that. Jason gave a faint, almost impeccable smile in return. No problem, Danny. They fell back into silence, but this time it wasn't suffocating. It was peaceful.